Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. Today I'm going to show you how easy it is to make your own disc sander just like this. Let me start off by talking a little bit about the motors that I purchased at a garage sale. I purchased the two of them together, and they're both 1/3 of a horse. They were probably fan motors for a furnace. They're a little underpowered for what we're making, but I think they're going to work, and we'll see at the end of the build how well they work. So the lady that I purchased these from had a set price on them, and I was okay with that price, but I asked her if they worked, and she didn't know. And so I asked her if I could plug them in, and she said, sure, there was a plug. And I said, look, if I plug these in, they might trip your circuit, at which case she said all of a sudden she gave me a much lower price and said, just take them the way they are. And I said, that's too low. I gave her more money for them, and I took them anyway, even without knowing whether they worked or not. Now, this one here, I'm not going to use today, and the reason is, see how there's a shaft on both sides here? I have another idea for something for this later on, and it also needs a bit of work electronically, but it does work the way it sits. This is the one I'm using today for a couple of reasons. It has a forward and reverse switch on it. It also has a reset button built into it, and it also came with a foot switch, and all of this actually works, plus the motor works. So this is the one that I'm going with. The other thing that's noticeable on motors is they can have different size shafts, and you can see that this one's a little bit bigger than this one. The parts I had to order for the one that I'm using, which is the smaller one, I'm going to show you right now. Now, aside from the motor, the other main component for this build is this little piece here. This is called a hub, and basically it's a hole that fits the size of this shaft here, and it has a flange on one side, and of course with the 4 holes it means that we can attach different size pieces of wood to that we can then use as the disc. I've checked it on there. It fits on there. There's a tiny bit of wobble to it. It's not a perfect fit. But you know what, it's as close as we're going to get. Also, I've checked the motor the best that I can, the shaft. It seems to be straight and flat, but all of these things can add up to a little bit of wobble when we get this thing finished. So I'm not expecting that this is going to be perfect. And the closer we get to the shaft is where it's going to be finer. So the further out you get, the more wobble there is. So we'll be working closer into the shaft anyway. So now, because we're working with a little bit smaller or a little bit underpowered motor, I've made discs that are a little bit smaller. Commercially, these big disc sanders are often 12-inch, and you can purchase 12-inch round sandpaper. But in my case, I'm going to be cutting it anyway, and I've gone ahead and made the 6-inch, one on MDF and one with a high-quality plywood, and I've made the 9-inch. This is the one I think I'm going to concentrate on, and I'll show you how we're going to cut some sandpaper to fit that as well. Now I'm going to need to raise the motor up a little bit, so I've just made some standoffs and I've just pre-drilled some holes, so I'm going to attach those. Now I can attach the motor, and I just drew a line on there and put the flange on there just to try and make sure that I get it at least somewhat aligned on there. So just a quick tutorial on the arcing piece for the top of that sander. Basically, after I got those two cut, and I cut them both individually, then I put where the pivot was, I drilled a hole and I left the drill bit in there so that I could then trim all of the sides so that they were identical on all sides. And I even used a nail in there to make sure that it didn't move. Then when I cut the base, and I just cut it to length as high as I thought I would need it, then what I did was attach that. So that pivot went through there. Then it also went through, see this lower hole down here? It went through that hole as well. So I'll put that down there like that. So this is what I was working with on the drill press. Then I drilled that final hole through there. So all of these pieces will all line up, and this will be the locking up here. This will be the locking area right here. So okay, I'm making some good progress here, so let me stop and show you where I'm at here. All this is still loose here. What I've been working on is the holder, the top, I don't know whether, I guess the tool rest is what this would be, or wood rest, and I've made this pivoting thing as I've already showed you, and I need to attach it to this piece of wood. So I have a carbide bit in here, and I've got a start and a stop. So what I'm going to be doing is starting, going along, pulling it off, turning it around and doing the same thing on the other side. I can't do a single pass in oak because it's just too hard, and there's a high likelihood I'll snap that bit. So what I'm going to do is I'll do one pass, I'll raise the bit a little bit, do another pass, do the same thing, raise it up, and I'll just keep doing it till I get to the top. And this is where I determined I'm going to put my hanger bolts, and that's what a hanger bolt looks like. Screw on one side, bolt on the other. And then I can just use a wing nut in the top of it, and that will tighten that down. But what I need to do first of all is to drill some pilot holes. Okay. Oh, and I just remembered, before I attach these on here, I want to put these T-nuts on here because this is going to, I need to have a way of fastening this down. There, and that's what that'll look like. We have the rest area all set up and it functions just fine. The next thing now is to secure a disc to it. So we have a few options here, and this is where it gets kind of fun. I just want to take a couple of minutes and talk about the options that you have for different size wheels, and I've shown you that already. Make sure that you mark the center because when you put the hub on, you're going to need to know what that is, so just keep that in mind. The next thing is, what are you going to use for grit? Are you going to be polishing or sharpening? And there's all sorts of different grits that you can get that you can apply to any of these wheels, to any size. In my case, I'm going to be using sandpaper, and sandpaper comes in discs. You can purchase it in discs. Sometimes you can find the disc that will fit the hub or wherever your supplier is. You can see they come in different sizes. Now they come two ways. They come with something called PS, which is pressure sensitive, and you might see a PSA, which is pressure sensitive adhesive. And all that is a backing, a sticky backing on that, so you peel off the plastic on any of these and you can lay that down and just stick that right on there. So that's one option, and of course they come in different sizes. The other thing that you can do, and I've talked about this in the past, in fact I made this little hand sander and it uses a hook and loop. You could also do a hook and loop version of one of these, and that way you can quickly change discs, but you're limited to the size on that one. And the last thing, and this is what I'm going to do, because I couldn't find the right size discs for the platters that I made, I'm going to use just a sheet of sanding paper. I'm going to use some 80 grit. I'm going to cut it out in a circle to fit my platter. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this spray-on glue, and you can actually spray the back of this and stick that to a wheel, and you can make your own discs of any size that you want, any grit, and whether it's sandpaper or any other kind of grit that you might want to use. Okay, I just got a chunk of plywood. It's got a little bit of a rounded edge on it. Wow, I am impressed. For a third of a horse, that works really well. That's eaten down that plywood, no problem at all. I'll take this edge off here. Wow, that's a great little sander. Well, that concludes my video for today, and I must say I'm very impressed. This is a nice little sander that didn't cost a lot of money, and I'll put the details in the article on Woodwork Web, and the link is in the description box below. I'm Colin Connett for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.